Hey everyone, Elias here, going live but also archiving this, putting it on the YouTube channel. Haven't done some of these in a while, and figure I'd start doing it now for the team after big fights that some of you may have watched. We were discussing it a lot, some of the big fights from UFC 257 today at the gym at the afternoon practice. So I want to bring some of the talking here. So part of what we're going to be doing here is discussing narrative and how that affects the way we look at fights. And part of what we're going to do is do a little bit of a technical analysis. So going into the fight, the main event of UFC 257, we had a rematch between Conor McGregor and between Dustin Poirier. They had fought one another about 6 years ago, and McGregor had won. He won a quick stoppage victory. He landed a big overhand that caught Dustin and largely the back of the head. Not saying it was illegal or anything, but it just is what it is. He dropped him and finished him. He went on to win championships in 2 divisions. Dustin Poirier moved up to lightweight, as Conor McGregor. He's gone up as far as welterweight as well. They're facing off now, and because of McGregor's fame, because of his previous win over Dustin Poirier, I feel like he was largely considered a favorite in the rematch to win. A huge mistake, in my view, a huge analytical mistake from most pundits, most fans, and most odds makers. Not that I know much about making odds per se, but if we look beyond the big name, if we look beyond the initial result on paper, we really saw that this fight wasn't one that we really should have expected to go the same way as the first one. What's changed in the 6 years? Well, Dustin Poirier became one of the best lightweights in the world. He headed into this fight having won 7 out of his last 8 bouts. Conor McGregor, I believe, had lost 3 out of his last 6 if you include his boxing bout. And I include that because you only get one body, one brain, one set of reflexes, no matter what set of rules you're fighting under. And he took damage in all these fights. He was stopped in all those 3 losses. And he was also McGregor had really been a lot less active compared to Dustin Poirier in recent years. I think this is like, he hadn't fought in about a year prior to this bout last night. And his previous fight against Donald Cerrone, I think he had over a year layoff. So he's much less active, much less successful, having taken a lot more damage, more apparent damage as far as we can tell in fights. And Dustin Poirier, meanwhile, has had really one real hiccup, losing a good fight to Khabib Nurmagomedov, who no one's been able to beat convincingly so far. So I feel as though if Conor McGregor hadn't had the big name, and if Dustin Poirier did not want revenge, this is a fight that really wouldn't have happened anyway, because they're just at different places in their career trajectories. Overall accomplishments, you may look at McGregor and say, hey, he's won 2 world championships, and certainly he has, and he deserves all the credit in the world for that. But at this point in their life, Dustin Poirier is the much more accomplished current fighter in terms of recent history, and looked to be much more effective, much fresher, taking less damage, and certainly with a lot less rust, fighting much more frequently. All right, so I think that really skewed. I think in that way, the run into the fight was very skewed. People didn't really have a good sense of what was going on. Maybe they hadn't paid attention much to Dustin Poirier. They'd heard of McGregor, and they hadn't paid much attention to Conor McGregor either. They just see the overall accomplishments and not how he'd been fighting, how often he'd been fighting, and the damage he's taken in his recent fights. Really, at this point, you look back, and Poirier now has won 8 of his last 9. Conor McGregor has lost 4 out of his last 7, been finished in all 4 of those fights. In the last half decade, in March, we're looking at a 5-year skid for Conor McGregor, where he's lost 4 of his last 7 fights. They're just at a completely different place in their career. All of that, none of that is to say that Conor McGregor was not dangerous. So let's look at the technical piece of the fight. I felt going in, just as I did 6 years ago, that Dustin Poirier was a more well-rounded fighter, had more ways to potentially win. In their first fight, McGregor landed early, really powerfully, and was able to finish. He had the capability to do that last night, and he did indeed land. He landed that straight left hand, his powerful left hand, as well as his lead hook, and kind of like the shovel hook, uppercut, hook combination. He landed that really, really nicely several times, and he stung Poirier. I still felt going into this one, personally, that if McGregor was not able to really hurt Dustin Poirier, that Dustin Poirier was able to find, Dustin Poirier was able to find a way to take it into later rounds, that he had many more ways to win. It didn't end up taking him that long. Early on, McGregor showed the advantages he had. He has better boxing, he has quicker hands, and he might have more powerful one-punch strikes than in comparison to Dustin Poirier. He hurt Dustin Poirier, but he didn't put him out. He didn't put him down. And after Poirier was hurt and stunned by several big punches from Conor McGregor, he started to look more comfortable at the end of the first round. There was a period where he looked not comfortable. He was getting tagged. He wasn't finding success when they were just dealing hand-to-hand in that range, in the punch range. But he survived it, and I think that gave him confidence. Anytime you've been stopped, especially stopped quickly by basically one shot from an opponent, you're going to have a question in your mind, no matter how many years have elapsed, no matter how confident you are in your development, in your training camp. When you're in there, you're going to wonder, wait, what happens? Can I stand up to that shot? Because it probably surprised the hell out of you the first time he stopped you with one shot. You're a tough guy for Dustin Poirier. You've been through a lot of wars even 6 years ago. Yet McGregor lands one shot and drops you. Once you're in that fight, you're wondering somewhere in the back of the head, is that going to happen again? If he touches me, am I going to go down again? And that's a scary thought. Once McGregor hit him, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 or 5 solid times that could have dropped other people, and Dustin was still standing, what he had yet to figure out technically in order to counter effectively and turn the tide in his favor, I think he probably started having much more confidence that at least he was going to be able to stand up to McGregor's punches in a way that he was not able to 6 years ago at a weight class lower. He stood up to them, and at the end of the first round, he began kicking. They were both southpaws, so they both had their right legs forward. That was their lead, their right side forward. And Dustin started landing calf kicks. These are really low roundhouse kicks to the leg, to the outside of McGregor's lead leg. And he started not at the thigh, but at the calf. They had been up to that point pretty much in a boxing match. And in a boxing match, McGregor has the advantage. He was just walking down Poirier, inching forward, and staying really, really confident and comfortable in this boxing range, slipping and countering, leading with the cross, and honestly was eating up Poirier, but for Poirier's early, really great takedown. So let's look at what Poirier was able to do and how he was able to turn the tide. Because, of course, by the beginning of the second round, Dustin had turned the tide, and not much longer, he ended up knocking McGregor down and out. So even before Poirier started landing with the leg kicks, he showed some real interesting wrinkles to Conor. One, he was willing to stand toe-to-toe with him. They started exchanging punches, and from the punching range and in the midst of punching exchanges, Dustin level changed in for some shots, outside trip, double leg takedown, scored it cleanly, and really looked to catch Conor on his heels when he did it. When Conor McGregor fought Khabib Nurmagomedov, he was initially much more successful at defending Khabib's takedowns. I don't think it's because Dustin Poirier is a better pure wrestler than Khabib. It's because he was setting up his shot with his strikes. He surprised McGregor by not being too eagerly focused on the takedowns, by not shooting from really far away, by not just kind of like, if not literally looking at the legs the whole time, kind of just giving a physical posture that all of this is just pretense. I'm really going to dive in and try to get connection the way Khabib often does. So Conor was expecting Khabib to shoot. Because of that, I think he was able to initially have a little success in defending those takedowns. With Dustin Poirier, who is a great all-around fighter, but is a really loves to exchange punches and strikes and mix things up, I don't think he was necessarily expecting shots, and certainly if he thought they might happen, Dustin was easily obliging him, even if he wasn't winning the exchanges, just by exchanging them, kind of got Conor McGregor's thinking away, it would seem, from takedowns. From there, Dustin was able to not only surprise McGregor, but then make McGregor work and exert himself in areas that he doesn't want to. McGregor wants to be out there striking in free range, not getting up, not defending against the cage, even though he's good from the clinch. He doesn't want to have to do that ideally. So Dustin, although I'm sure he tired himself out, he was able to tire McGregor a little bit, and more importantly than physically tire in the first round, just give him something else to think about. Now he knew, all right, I guess at any point in a firefight, Dustin is capable of changing levels in a split second and taking me down and making me work from there. That's going to give you something extra to think about. Then Poirier, after he got tagged himself near the end of the first round, gave McGregor something else to think about. He gave him those low calf kicks to think about. He would lead with the calf kick. He would throw the calf kicks after strikes. He would do it. He would land a calf kick and stay put. He'd land a calf kick and move. He would land a calf kick when McGregor was just standing heavy on his lead leg, heavy and wide. He did it when McGregor was trying to back away. While Dustin was showing these wrinkles in his game, even though he arguably lost that round, and I believe he did lose that round, he was showing McGregor different looks at different levels, striking offensively with different weapons at different levels and different ranges, and also working his grappling and making McGregor have to respect that. While he was doing that, what was McGregor? A really dynamic, excellent fighter in terms of being able to move and use his ability to move in and out and sense of range and distance. What was he doing? He was giving Dustin Poirier basically one thing to think about. A really dangerous set of problems, but one set of problems. Conor McGregor didn't look but for one or two kicks and one nice spinning kick, maybe another leg kick or two. He was basically trying, he telegraphed what he wanted to do. He said, I'm going to inch forward, I'm going to back you down, which is good in and of itself. And he said, I'm just going to be punching with you. And while I'm punching, I'm going to have this advantage. If Poirier would have stayed in that range, stayed with those weapons, and only exchanged there, or if he had gone down from one of those early shots that McGregor landed, could have been a completely different fight. But instead, he remembered that this is MMA, and although he cannot kick as well, or as many, he can't do as many types of kicks as well as Conor McGregor may be able to do, or at least not as flashy ones. And although he is not as quick on his own feet, although his single punch power is not as good as McGregor's, and although his hands aren't as fast as McGregor's, Dustin Poirier was ultimately able to win a striking exchange in pretty short order, and by the second round, and put down Conor McGregor. I don't think he would have been able to do that in a straight boxing match. I don't think he would have been able to do that in a straight kickboxing match, but in an MMA fight where Dustin Poirier realized he could use threats of takedowns, he could use the clinch, he could, even when he wasn't being offensive in the clinch, just grind and frustrate his opponent. He could, when his opponent was getting advantage at punching range, start kicking, and thereby start really mitigating McGregor's ability to move. He did himself a service. And by the time he started scoring with his big punches, he didn't need to be the quicker, more raw punching power fighter in that bout. He had hobbled McGregor. He had tired him out. He had made him think about and guess of what range the attacks are coming from, what type of attack is coming. And at that point, you don't need many things to succeed. You don't need to be super quick in a like 1-to-1 fresh starting manner to win that type of fight. Conor McGregor decided for whatever reason, not to move around. He wanted to stalk Dustin Poirier. Taking that approach, he basically needed to knock Dustin out fast. When he didn't do that, and he didn't adapt, and didn't start moving in and out and start using his own kicks, and Dustin started using his kicks to great effect and really hobbling McGregor, then his options began to run out. Because at that point, McGregor may have been thinking, shoot, I need to change my range. I need to move around a little bit. I need to use my great light footwork. At that point, he's kind of half temporarily crippled. So even if he wanted to do it, he wasn't able to do it. Really, really great, tactical, smart, patient, gritty fighting from Dustin Poirier. He's always been tough. He's always been well-rounded. He gets smarter and smarter with every fight. He's well-coached. Mike Brown is his head coach, who you all know, is a friend of the academy. He had Thiago Alves, a really great MMA striker himself and teammate of American Top Team in his corner. He seems to be coaching a lot more. And other great coaches as well in his corner and in his camp. And it was just a really great reminder that raw talent, raw physical attributes or particular advantages or situational advantages or situational skill advantages in a bout don't need to decide it. Mindset, tactics, and durability and conditioning can go a long, long way if you have those types of advantages over your opponent. If you're willing and able to attack in more ways than your opponent, if you can withstand your opponent's primary attacks, and then you are able to start finding different pathways and try different things while they continue on the same path, that can go a long, long way, especially at the high level. At the high level, it's not usually a matter of who is better than the other person. It's who fights better in that particular night, who adjusts better. If no one goes down quickly, it's who adjusts better, who has better conditioning, who has a more flexible, pliable mind and able to pivot on a dime and then start doing damage in ways that they weren't able to do with different approaches earlier in the fight. So, fantastic fight. Really, really strange that Dustin Poirier was underestimated. That's exactly the type of thing I thought he could do if he could withstand some early punches from McGregor. But again, when we just pay attention to name and hype and don't really look deeply at how people are moving, the type of success they're having recently and how they've developed as fighters, it really affects our ability to analyze fights and to game plan. So when we're preparing for our own competitions, we really want to try to develop some resiliency in areas that we know we might be placed in, and build capacity in terms of conditioning, physical and mental. And then we want to at least try to drill for one or two ways out of those paths. Like if one direction that we anticipate happening or one path of a fight or competition that we anticipate happening indeed does occur, we want to have had in mind during our training camp and train at least one or two alternate paths that may or may not succeed, but we got to have these ideas in our head. We got to know that, like Dustin Poirier and his team probably did, we're probably going to end up exchanging some punches with Conor McGregor. Maybe that'll go well for us, maybe it won't. If it doesn't, here's plan A and a half, and here's plan B. Let's see what happens there. And if we can always keep our opponents honest, whether or not we do devastating damage or can dominate them, if we at least make them think about threats and deal with problems and exert themselves in ways and in positions that they were hoping they wouldn't have to, it can go a long way as well. Again, Dustin Poirier is not a wrestler. He came ready to wrestle. He came ready to grind and spend some time in order to get later in the fight. And it really, really, really paid off. So I hope you all enjoyed the fight. If you haven't seen it, try to watch the fight. You can find archived videos of bouts usually the day after at MMA-core.com. It's just a website that that's out there. I don't have any affiliation with them. MMA-core.com seems to get those fights up. So let us know what you thought of the bouts. Hopefully you all are as healthy and as happy as you can be. Thank you so much for joining in. I see a lot of you in here. Appreciate it. Share it with others. If you can feel free to rip it and share with others if you like. I hope to see you all in the gym if you're able. If not, on Zoom at Foundation Chicago, join us in the class. We're distancing, we're masked up, we're cleaning a lot. And for those that aren't comfortable or are not able to get inside the studio, you can always sign up for Zoom. When you Zoom in, and we have differentiated curricula so that you can get a good workout at home, whether or not you have no equipment, unlimited space, or a lot of equipment, and you can do everything along with the team. Our small class sizes really allow us to be pliable and flexible and take and give you some different paths and different routes based on where you are. So thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to shut this off in a second. I'll see you guys later.